Hello and welcome to the Liverpool Connection podcast. I'm your host Daz and I've got Steve with me, and today I've got Neil Jones, former Liverpool Echo reporter and now with goal.com and reporting all things Liverpool. Hi Neil.
Hi guys, you okay?
Yeah, good. First thing, I'm going to get right into it and just say what does Liverpool Football Club mean to you?
Well, it's a huge part of my life. It always has been, even more so now, obviously, because it's not just a social thing and a personal thing, but it's a work thing as well. So it's, I mean, you'll know as well as I do, Daz, and I'm sure Steve's the same, but football, you know, for me and for a lot of people certainly in the UK and beyond, it's the first thing they get into, isn't it? You know, it's the first thing that sort of grabs your attention when you're young. You know, you have your sort of whatever it is, your toy cars or whatever, but every child really loves playing with a ball, don't they? And they love kicking a ball around or throwing a ball around, whatever it might be. And I was no different. You know, I was playing sort of 3 and 4 years old on the estate, and your straight choice, isn't it? It's Liverpool or Everton, and it's a good mix where I grew up, and a lot of my friends who are still good friends with, still a good mix now. You know, healthy representative of Everton fans and a few Liverpool fans, but it became Liverpool, and that was my growing up really. I mean, I was an obsessive football fan as well. I wasn't just a sort of casual, you know. I was one who bought all the magazines and watched all the TV shows, and you know, my granddad was the one who used to have Sky in the house, so I used to go round to his and watch all the games on a Sunday and Monday night and all that. So yeah, great times. I mean, for me, I count myself very lucky that I get to do what I do for a living, which is what a lot of people would probably pay to do, and I'm lucky enough to get paid to do it. So I never take that for granted, and especially when it's covering a club like Liverpool, where first things first, you're never short of anything to write about, and second thing, you're never short of any wonderful memories to make and remember.
So, you know, the 30-year wait is finally over. Like, and do you think the shine's been taken off of it a little bit? You know, with not being able to have the parade and everything.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, to be honest, it has in a way, hasn't it? In the sense that it isn't what everyone imagined it was going to be like. It isn't what people would have dreamt it had been like. I mean, I was born in 1984, so I don't remember the 1990 title success. I wasn't sort of my real sort of competitive football kicked in the following season, probably after the World Cup with 1990, and then the following season was when I really started to notice players and teams and whatever else. So I don't remember it. So for most of my football life, I have thought, can you imagine what Liverpool's going to be like when Liverpool win the league? And can you imagine the party? Can you imagine the scenes and the pictures and whatever else? So for it to come in the way it has, obviously it's not what anyone had pictured. But I have another side. I've spoken to a few people about this, and I think it almost gives it, there's something almost unique about it. Well, there is something unique about it, but there's something almost unique about the way that they've been able to celebrate it, because you found people spending it with the people closest to them, whereas that might not be the case if you're going all over the world traveling, and you know, you're going to watch, you know, you're going to Crystal Palace or wherever it might be, Brighton or anywhere, and you're in and away, and then obviously with familiar faces largely, but you're also sort of, you're waiting to go home and then see your wife or your mother or your whatever it might be, your brother. And I heard a lot of stories from fans who the moment it happened, they were with their immediate family and their closest people, their children maybe, you know. And I think there's something about that made it a bit more homely. It's obviously making the best of a bad situation all around, but I don't think, I mean, certainly not in the city, I don't think there was a lack of enjoyment or celebration, put it that way, from people, whether it was at home, whether it was, you know, in the street, or, you know, obviously we saw in some cases spilling out into the city, which wasn't ideal. But I think it was very much appreciated by Liverpool fans, and I think it was appreciated quite early that it wasn't going to be the way that we'd all dreamt it. So what can we do to make the most of it? And I think Liverpool as a club did pretty well on the presentation night, and I think the fans themselves as well did. You know, the majority of them did a pretty good job of enjoying it.
Yeah, I think because I celebrated, you know, with me 4 little ones, which, you know, I probably never would have done because I would have been actually back home in Liverpool. But, you know, the whole thing of like looking at me going, why are you crying, Daddy? So, they just won the league. I mean, they're little, so they don't really understand. But like when Man City played Chelsea, like how did you feel after that result?
Yeah, it was a strange one because I don't want to sound like I'm being smart, but I knew City wouldn't win. I had it in my head as soon as Liverpool had played the way they did the night before against Palace, and I knew Chelsea, a draw or a win for Chelsea was going to do it. And I thought, I just can't see City going there. And it's sort of fitting that was the way it was done. I know a lot of people would have said they'd like Liverpool to have gone the Etihad and beat City and won it that way. But sort of the story of the season has been Liverpool doing it and City not being able to follow it. And I think that was the way the title came. Liverpool win on the Wednesday, City go to Chelsea on the Thursday. You've got to win. We can't do it, which you've done, you know, most of the season. So I had all me, you know, obviously it's a busy time for a journalist, so you'd have to have countless pieces ready to go and, you know, ready to react to whatever else happens. And I had a lot of it lined up before the Chelsea game kicked off, so I was ready. I had it all filed, and it just needed a minor tweak. And if that happens, then it's good to go, and you can put it out there. And I was quite relaxed. I have to say, I didn't watch it. You know, I was around people who were on an iPad, and we were sort of out, you know, sort of just outdoors having a bit of a catch up, 3 or 4 of us, and they were watching on the iPad. But I was sort of quite relaxed. So I think they're going to do it, and obviously then you get to the penalty situation, and you watch that, and you think 15 minutes to go or whatever it was, and you think they're down to 10 men. I think it's done, and then you had that. It was probably about a 10-minute period. You had 6 minutes of stoppage time and maybe 5 minutes at the back end of the game where you think it's just counting down now. You know, you can get ready for the moment, and it was emotional. There was a lot of people there who I've never seen so emotional, and I've got a lot of messages of people who I don't associate with being emotional people, and they were. So I think there was something nice about that as well, just seeing that release and that. I think the end of a yearning that has probably consumed some people, you know, in some ways. Liverpool have been pretty fortunate. You know, people talk about 30 years of hate, but not really. I mean, you know, it's not been a bad 30 years as if for most clubs. But I think the yearning for the league title and being the one that didn't fill the collection for a lot of people, you know, not least the players. I think that was there was something nice about that. It was a good Thursday night, put it that way. It was just one of those. It was one of those that you'll remember. You know, I mean, Steve and I were talking just before we came on about Istanbul, 25th. Again, 25th. You know, we got the 25th of May, you got the 25th of June now. It'll always be in Liverpool's folklore.
Defo, yeah. Steve?
Yeah. Hey, Neil, thanks for coming on again. I was, when you were mentioning about, you know, winning the title by Chelsea winning that game, and then people wishing that we could have beat Man City, I was like, man, that's 4 days of extra drinking we get to be as champions, man. Let's win it as fast as we can and start partying. And I was like, I didn't understand that kind of mindset, because, you know, even if we didn't have the COVID situation, we still could have won the league by City dropping points in a previous game. So I didn't understand any of that. But I wanted to ask you a question, because obviously you're doing you're earning a living, you know, following the team and writing about the team. And I just wanted to, and that's something that, you know, all of us out here that are listening that would love to be able to make a living somehow through Liverpool Football Club and their endeavors. But I wanted to see if you can kind of share with us how you became a journalist, and if you started out as a footy writer, or does that come in after you started, you know, with Echo and all that?
Yeah, it was. I have to say, I mean, I always describe it as an unusual route into journalism, because it wasn't. It sort of went like that, and then completely down to there, and then picked it back up. So when I was younger, it was something I wanted to do, and I have, you know, as I said, really, I was obsessive with football media at the time, where, you know, I'd read all the papers, the match reports, and the player ratings, and whatever else, the 442 magazine and Shoot magazine, and all those kind of things. And I always thought, I want to write about football if and it was quickly evident that I wasn't good enough to play. or make a living that way. So I had that in my mind, but then you sort of you get to maybe, I probably get to about 15 or 16 through to 22, 23, and I think other things take over. I wasn't from a family that was massively, it wasn't a great history of going to university and that kind of thing. It wasn't, I wasn't from a particularly well-off family, so the idea of going away at 18 and earning money was a more appealing thing at the time for 18-year-old me. So I went into just a normal everyday job working in a bank when I was 19, just turned 19. So I did that for nearly 5 years, and it wasn't really until 2008. So I would have been 23, 24, and I injured my knee playing football. I played amateur football, and I injured my knee, and I had 10 weeks off after surgery, and the boredom, was just such that what are you going to do for 10 weeks when you can't even really get up? You're on crutches, you've got your knees in a brace. So start off, you just read everything. You read, you're up late quite a lot because you're sort of in a bit of pain. And I started writing a bit of a blog. It was on MySpace, I think. That's how long ago it was. I think it was MySpace, and you could publish your own little blog on MySpace. So, you write about something that was in the news at that time. I can't really remember some of the early stuff. It'd be around Fernando Torres or something along them lines, or it'd be around something else. And I quite enjoyed it. Then occasionally you get the odd random person would comment on it or share it or whatever, and then you'd sort of get a little message saying, "Oh, I really liked your blog." Then you think, okay. Then there was a website called Soccer Lens which got in touch and said, "Would you like to write a piece for us?" And from there, it was a really sort of, just sort of going along with the ride. And then I ended up, funny enough, Goal, who I now work for, came in touch. They were just setting up their UK website, and they said, "We want someone to cover Liverpool. Would you fancy doing it?" I said, "Yeah." I thought it was going to be, yeah. Well, I thought it was going to be part, like a sort of, in your own time type of thing, do what you want. And he said, "Okay, right, we'll this is how much you'd be paid. This is what you'd be doing. This is where we'll be putting." I thought, "Oh, hang on, it's an actual job, So did that for a season, or just about a season, a bit less. 2009-10, which was the last season of Benitez. The first game I ever covered, I always, funny how things work out, was actually on my birthday. It was 12th of September 2009. Liverpool beat Burnley 4-0 at Anfield. Yossi Benayoun scored a hat-trick. So as it happened, I left the job in the bank on the Friday the 11th, and then started at Anfield on the Saturday. So I went from sort of opening business accounts on Friday morning to asking a question of Rafa Benitez in a press conference on the Saturday. And then, to be honest, you can guess how this would come about, but I wasn't anywhere near prepared to be a football journalist. You literally just done it from one day to the next. So I found it tougher and tougher as it went on the season, because you weren't really doing what you were supposed to be doing. You could see real journalists working, and I was there thinking, how do I get to this? So the end of that season, I sort of made the decision that I wanted to go and try and get proper experience, and I wanted to work for the Echo. I always did. So I offered to go in on work experience. Did so during the World Cup, 2010 World Cup, and I never left. I didn't leave for nearly 8 years. A little bit through cheek and persistence, and hopefully through some good work as well. So I ended up. Yeah, it took me about. I think it took me about 7-8 months to get an actual official job there, but I was working there, as a bit of a stringer in the interim as well, and very, very fortunate. And then I obviously spent 7.5, nearly 8 years with the local newspaper.
It's funny when you first started as a journalist, that was the Hicks and Gillette, right, at that time, and now you're obviously with this new ownership group. It's kind of quite a transition of atmosphere at the club, and I'm sure of the stories that you can tell and write about there.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, the first, so again, when I went to the Echo, the first day I was there, or around certainly the first week, was around Benitez leaving Liverpool. So he was about to leave, and obviously, as we know, it ended up with Roy Hodgson being in charge. But I remember being in the Echo newsroom around that story, and you're thinking, wow, the first week in a newsroom, and they're going to sack, Champions League winning manager. So that was mad. Then, sort of when you have the next few months, which somehow it managed to get even madder, and there was a High Court case. I remember being in the office when the Echo had reporters down in London waiting for this outcome on what the future of the club was going to be, and you're thinking, you're hearing all these, pretty well sourced stories that Liverpool are, I wouldn't say on the threat of existence, but they were certainly on the threat of being major problems for the club in terms of the finances and the future of the club. So, yeah, to go from that, what was that, October 2010, to we're not even 10 years on from there, and you're talking about covering Liverpool. It is night and day. It's a lot happier, put it that way. There's a lot more nice things to write, and it's probably, in a weird way, it's probably less challenging because it's easier to write nice things about people. Yeah, obviously.
I was going to mention that
it's also nicer to do.
Right. I was going to mention that this team seems to be a genuinely great team to follow. Obviously, they have this winning mentality, but just the backstories on a lot of these players, from where they came, whether it be Robertson or Mane or Salah, their upbringings and just the way they give back to their communities. Seems like this team just has just so many different topics that you can approach when you're writing a column or a story, it seems.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I mean, listen, and again, you talk about how quickly football changes. 2015 summer, so Liverpool, obviously, the last game of the previous season, had been beaten by Stoke 6-1, and you think, okay, where are we here? And you go to the summer, the pre-season tour of the Far East in Australia, and I remember it being there was a real, I wouldn't say a lack of interest, because Liverpool fans are always interested, but it just didn't feel like the team was particularly popular. It felt like the club was, and the shirt was, and the liver birds, but the team, I always felt it was quite an unpopular side. You think of some of the players that had come in and hadn't really done it, Dejan Lovren and Emre Can and Lazar Markovic and whoever else, Mario Balotelli, you want to mention. And it felt like they didn't have anyone to love in a strange way. Liverpool fans, Coutinho had sort of elevated himself. But I actually always felt, and I still do, I always felt Coutinho was elevated in a poor side into a level that he probably wasn't really worthy of. Albeit he was a very talented footballer. But to go from that, and in the space of, as I say, less than 5 years, or just about 5 years, to have, we could sit on Zoom here with 30 Liverpool fans, and we could ask them, who's your favourite player? And I reckon you get 15 answers, at least, from people. You get people who love Alisson, you get people who love Trent Story, you love Mo Salah, around the world, Bobby Firmino being the most important player, or Jordan Henderson, whoever it may be. And that is a great testament to them players, but also I think to the club in terms of identifying players that maybe you wouldn't think were going to be Liverpool players in the past. And Robertson, I think, is a great example of one that I didn't think Andy Robertson was going to be a Liverpool starter or a Liverpool star. I thought he's another one to go on your left back list with the others, and so happy to be proven wrong. But I think it's a great testament to the club for spotting them, and also the manager for blending them together and creating what probably now is gone from the most unpopular team to probably the most popular team in Liverpool's history. I think if you look back at great sides of the past, Darren at the start mentioned King Kenny, and he will always be people's king of that era. Mm-hmm. Other people have Steven Gerrard, he will always be their king. This team has 5, 6, 7 kings that will always be the king of this team, and I think that makes it such a special side.
Our listeners, our regular listeners, they know that I was in Liverpool for that when they lost to Stoke 6-1. So it was very depressing. But then I came back. Then I came back in October, and that was Klopp's first home game. and you could just tell the atmosphere in that whole city had changed. And he hadn't really, he had just started his career, but it was palpable the just the excitement that we had already gripped the city in just that short amount of time. Brendan Rodgers just got sacked, and I would imagine as a journalist seeing this larger than life person that had an established track record at Dortmund of success, and he's coming in and now just maybe doing some research on his past, just saying, man, we're going to have fun with this guy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was actually, so when Klopp's Dortmund was sort of emerging in Germany, 2010, around that sort of time, I was obviously not yet in at the Echo, but wanting to work in football. So you're sort of you're trying to broaden your horizons a little bit. You're trying to make sure you're across as many things as you can. A lot of talk about this Dortmund side, and you start watching it. And I was also managing a football team, so used to use them a little bit with some of it. I'd be like, I wanted to be like Kagawa today. Come on, you've got to try and be my Mario Kart. There was a bit of that about it, and so they were always on a Friday night. It always felt like they were on a Friday night on ESPN or BT Sport or one of those, and you'd watch Dortmund play someone, and it was always an exciting game. 3-2 or something like that. It felt like a lot of those types of games, and so when Klopp sort of he came into the conscious of the British media, really, when Dortmund reached the final in 2013 at Wembley. They had that incredible game against Malaga en route where they scored twice in stoppage time. Then they stuff Real Madrid, Mourinho's Real Madrid in the semi-final, and I think everyone quite enjoyed that. Then he's obviously given some interviews to the British press, and what a cool guy he seemed like, and a different take on football. So I think he was always in people's minds, especially I think with Liverpool fans' mind, because I think a lot of Liverpool fans just thought, I'd have a bit of him, I'd have him in charge of my club, someone with a bit of personality, a bit of passion behind them. And I remember, I was working, so I was actually off the day Brendan Rodgers was sacked. I was probably the only person on the sports desk who wasn't working the Merseyside derby, just the way the rota felt. And I remember that week after Rodgers had gone, and I was in the office, and it was crazy. It was the first time I ever was aware of a thing called flight radar, where you could track airplanes, and Liverpool fans were tracking an airplane coming over, bringing Klopp, supposedly bringing Klopp. I don't even know if it did, bringing Klopp to Liverpool. The frenzy around that was something really, really special, and really, I think it sums Liverpool up as a club, I think, and a fan base, in that I think more so than any other club, I think they place their love to a manager. And you think really back, every club sort of has one legendary manager, doesn't it? You think about it really, maybe some clubs have more than one, but the thing of Leeds with someone like Don Revie and people like that. Chelsea probably have Mourinho as theirs. And you look at Liverpool and all those legendary managers, and those managers that have got the freedom of the city, would be granted to them. I think it sums that up, that Jurgen Klopp sort of was given that responsibility before he'd even set foot in Anfield. It was, come on, come and save us, come and be our man, come and be the guy to take us forward. And 5 years on, he's done exactly that.
Yeah, and people forget that, it was Ancelotti really was the lead choice to come to Liverpool at the time instead of Klopp. Yeah,
there'll be a few. There was to go from Brendan Rodgers to Klopp is, Brendan Rodgers is a good manager and has had a good career, but it's like selling, David Ngog and getting Luis Suarez straight up, as an immediate replacement, isn't it? It's that sort of level of replacement. So kudos to FSG for being able to do that, because they'd shown a willingness to go down a different path with Rodgers, and they were big enough and strong enough and attractive enough in their sell to get a completely different style of manager, a completely different caliber of manager, and take the club in a completely different direction.
You mentioned FSG. How has their relationship been with the media, the local media, since they've taken over, and really in these last, I guess, 5 years, right?
Yeah. Well, I have to speak. I don't have a particularly. I can't speak on a first-hand basis. I've interviewed Tom Wern at the back end of last season, just briefly at the end of the season. So my knowledge of FSG isn't particularly personal or close. But they've made some mistakes. Obviously, they've had some mistakes this year. I mean, April, as recently as April, really, they made a pretty bad one. They made one obviously with the trademark of Liverpool and the live bird. I think was that last year, wasn't it? Start of last season, or the season just gone. They've made some with ticket prices, but I think the biggest thing you'd say about our FSG is, okay, everyone makes mistakes. I think they're quite good at rectifying them quite quickly. I think they're able to spot when the mood's turned a little bit and to go, do you know what, we might need to just swallow our pride a little bit here and take a few hits and go for it. But on the pitch, which is where the place I'm interested in, and I always will be, the business of football will always sort of pass over me a little bit because it's just not what I got into football for. It's not why I grew up loving the game. But on the pitch, you can't argue with what they've done. They've done it with a specific way and a way that will attract criticism. I think it probably will continue to attract criticism because there is a lot of people who want to see every resource thrown into every situation. But what Liverpool have done is, over the last 5 years in particular, progressively and clearly and decisively got better and better and better in just about every area, whether it's the goalkeeper, the back four, the midfield, the attack, the bench, the youth policy, the recruitment, the analytics, the nutrition, whatever department it is, it's far, far better than it was when Klopp took over. And you can give Klopp as much credit as you like, but you also have to have, and he will be the first to say, you also have to have the backing of the people above you to be able to do that, and he's had that.
I wanted to ask you a question because I read something from James Pearce, one of the top Liverpool journalists, and he's now working at the Athletic, writing for them, and he said that when he left his daily paper role and went to the online, that it really freed up his ability to write stories, and it changed really the atmosphere of how he was approaching his job. Have you found that to be a similar transition from going from the Echo to Goal?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, James even more so than I was. I mean, he's a good friend of mine, James, so I can speak with some knowledge of this. I mean, he remains, to me, he's the hardest working journalist I've ever come across in all my time. So he was always, I mean, I worried he would struggle not being able to work as hard. I thought he would struggle with that, in the sense that he would feel like he was doing nothing. But you look at, I mean, I subscribe to Athletic, I'm sure you guys do as well. I mean, you look at the work he's produced since he went, it's career best work, isn't it? Not to denigrate anything he did before. But he was we were all on it at the Echo, and the guys who are there now, who were, a lot of real good journalists there. But the nature of that place and the nature of the job and the nature of the club that they're covering, it's a hamster wheel, and you just have to be on it all the time. So if James would be writing important interviews with a Tom Werner or whoever, but then there'd also be someone in Spain and a Spanish website is linking Liverpool all of a sudden with X, Y, or Z, then he's got to be on that. Then there's some quotes have dropped on the Liverpool website with Virgil van Dijk, so he's got to be on that. And he was running constantly. I mean, if you've ever, I mean, don't know if you guys have ever spoken to him or met him, but if you've ever walked alongside, hopefully in the future, but ask him, if you do get a chance, just ask him how fast he walks. That just sums him up as a journalist. He walks faster than a lot of people run. I mean, I've walked through airports with him and just can't keep up with him. But that sort of sums up how his life is. It's constant. You've got to be available 24/7, constant. And I hope and I know that since he's gone to the Athletic, he's been able to just take a bit more time and obviously craft pieces and create, as I say, career best content. And good on him. He took a big plunge there, because that's a top job. The Liverpool guy at the Liverpool Echo. It's a tough one to walk away from, but he's done it. He's gone to the Athletic, and I think his stock's only gone in one direction. Yep.
And so, any plans of a book from you?
Not at the moment, no. I'm busy enough, to be fair, and I think that market will be quite flooded. I think in the next few weeks, we've already seen a few coming out. So Yeah, I'll hang fire. I'll wait until we get to number 20 or 21 maybe, and then go from there.
All right.
Steve's going to do a colouring book.
That's right. There may be a couple words in it even.
Neil, I wanted to ask you like a little quick review of the season. What are some of your favourite matches?
Yeah, a couple of memories really. I'll throw straight away. I mean, so Southampton, second game of the season. I think Liverpool had been to Turkey in midweek and won the Super Cup in difficult situation. You know, they obviously Alisson got injured, and then Adrian incredibly had picked up a sort of ankle injury in the celebrations. I think a fan had fallen on his ankle. They were very tired. They'd gone to extra time and penalties, and went to Southampton on the Saturday, and it was sort of just try and get through this. Just try and get, hopefully they can get through this. And you come away with a 2-1 win, just about. I was driving back up to Liverpool and pulled into a petrol station, and City were playing Tottenham, and I'd watched sort of the first half of the City game really in Southampton's media room, and City were good. Tottenham were 1-1 somehow here. How's this happened? It was 2-2. I went into the petrol station, and the guy I was travelling with, Doyle, he says to me, 3-2 City. He says, oh well, they've got a late winner, Jesus. So I went in, paid for the petrol, come back in, sat down. He said it was disallowed. VAR is disallowed the goal. I thought, oh, that's good. So it finished 2-2. And I remember saying to him, I said that could be crucial. So that could be 2 points. And he said it's August the 20th or whatever it was. But it was sort of, that was the mood early in the season. Already Liverpool had scored a victory early in the season. After City had won 14 games at the back end of last season, you thought, you've blinked. There you go, they've blinked. Finally, they've blinked. And from there on, obviously Liverpool go on. And, fast forward to early November, Villa away. And weirdly, both teams kicking off 3 o'clock on a Saturday, both at the same time. Very rare that would be happening, that Liverpool would be playing and City would be playing at the same time. Obviously, TV usually dictates it's not the case. And I just remember sitting next to a guy in the press box at Villa Park, and 1-0, 5 minutes to go. City had just gone 2-1 up to playing Southampton. And he said, big one next week. Hey, City 3 points. If they win, we'll go above Liverpool. And I said, it's not over this yet. I said, this don't be counting this yet. Liverpool will get one here today. And he said, I don't think so. And obviously, they don't just get one, they go and get two. And I remember really thinking when I come away from that, I just don't think Liverpool are going to give it up this time. I just don't think they're going to do it. And obviously, the following week, we beat City. And you think, 9 points in November, it's a big margin. Mm-hmm. Then, again, jumping forward again, you go to December, Boxing Day, and you're going down to Leicester. And I remember sort of being the cocky one, if you like, out of my group of friends. They were saying, Leicester going well. Vardy always plays well against Liverpool. Rodgers got them playing. They'll be right at us. We've just been to Qatar and all that. And I'm saying, Liverpool will win. And really, Liverpool don't just win. They go and produce a performance where everyone, I think, who came away from that ground. Funny enough, I read back my match report from that night, and it was, the intro was "Champions of England, you'll never sing that," which is what Leicester fans always sing to fans who come. Probably not Man City and United or whatever, but "Champions of England, you'll never sing that," because obviously they won the league. And I think the intro was something like, they'll have to leave that one at home next time Liverpool visit the King Power, because Liverpool are going to win the league. And I remember a couple of people saying to me, you've gone early, you've gone far too early. It's only December the 26th. There's a lot to be playing, but I don't think anyone who watched that game and came out of that game felt anything else that Liverpool are going to win the league. They are going to win it. They're 13 points clear. I think the following night City going to lose, so Liverpool are 13 clear with a game in hand. And you're looking at. I remember a couple of lads saying to me, sometimes I just get the league table up and just look at it and just have a laugh to myself, because it's like, what's going on? Like, 20 games played and we've won 19 and we're 16 points clear at the top of the table. And I look back on those two, Villa and Leicester in particular. I look back on and say, I'm glad I was there to witness those moments, because they were so huge. And then obviously, then you've got the one where you're not there to witness it, but you're experiencing Chelsea going beating City for the title. I mean, I don't think anyone will ever forget where they were or who they were with or what they were doing at that point. We've heard so many stories from people, of who they rang and their FaceTiming people and people knocking at the door and all that. So when you look back on 1920 season, you'll remember it for COVID and for all the impact that created. But let's not forget some of the good memories as well that were around it. And for Liverpool, they were plentiful.
Did you cover the Atleti match?
Yeah, both legs. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously you're a fan as well. So how did you feel after that match?
The second leg, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I sort of had a pang. So during the lockdown period, I had a lot of, obviously everyone had a lot of reflection time, obviously, but there was a lot made of obviously the game going ahead and the fact that it had happened and the fact that it was the last major football game, really played with fans, a full stadium. I sort of had these pangs of, I felt like I'd missed the story really. As a journalist, as a person, I felt like, I remember my piece was written just about goalkeepers after the game because obviously Adrian had his mistake and Oblak had been pretty good for Atletico, and I sort of did it as a football piece. And it was only when you go on you think, how did that game go ahead? We were doing some filming, we did a documentary for Goal, and it came out during the lockdown period, but we were supposed to be getting some celebratory footage for when Liverpool win the league, which was hopefully was going to be the Monday after against Everton. Probably was going to be the following Saturday against Palace. But we were filming around that game, and it was a normal game, really. I always remember Klopp. I think there was a video of Klopp sort of people trying to fist bump him, and he was going, he basically said, "Put your fucking hands away," which I think was like, you sort of go, oh, all right, COVID was sort of still a bit blasé. I think a lot of people were about it, but when you reflect on it, you think, God, that game should never have took place, should it? But it just shouldn't. I mean, certainly not with fans in the stadium, at the very least. But really, it shouldn't have taken place. And yeah, it was a bittersweet one. Obviously, I think Liverpool played quite well. Probably deserved on the night to go through. Didn't. But the bigger issue was far beyond football. And yeah, it's hard to feel too much disappointment around the football element. It would be nice if Liverpool were still in the Champions League now and having games to look forward to and thinking about number 7. But really, I think that game just pales into insignificance. And from a professional and a personal point of view, it's one I'd rather forget, really, because I don't think I did my job as well as I should have done at that point.
Neil, obviously, there's a lot of shelter in place happening, and so how are you producing content while you're working from home, or without being able to have direct access to the players? How has that been a challenge for you?
It has, yeah. I mean, I was fortunate. I wasn't placed on furlough leave. I wasn't, didn't have really any effect on my job, thankfully, in terms of pay cuts or anything like that. So one of the fortunate ones, but I was working all the way through the lockdown period, and it was challenging because you get into a rhythm. Your Friday's your press conference day, your Saturday's your match day, your Sunday's your follow up day. You've got mixed zones, and you've got player interviews and things like that, and you really rely on that rhythm because it just keeps you ticking over through the week, and you'll have quotes saved away from an interview that you've done a couple of weeks earlier, and you'll have whereas it was almost like right, it's June now. Every month was June for a few months because there's no games, there's no major tournament going on that you can sort of hang your hat on. You've just got to come up with some ideas to fill some spaces, and I was quite pleased with some of the stuff that Goal and myself as well managed to do during the lockdown period. The documentary, I think, that myself and Jay Legate, our video producer, managed to produce was brilliant for the circumstances that we created it in. We were doing a lot of these kind of chats and having to produce remote. So I was very proud of that, and Jay should certainly be very proud of that because he did the bulk of the heavy lifting with the production. But it's not the same, is it? It's not the same as, going to Melwood and seeing Jurgen Klopp face to face and seeing Virgil van Dijk and all that, going to games and experiencing it. And then obviously when you go back in June, you're experiencing it, and it's completely different to how it was when you left. And you're watching games with a face mask on, and no fans in the stadium, and you can hear every shout of the players. So it's been a challenge, but I think, and personally, I'm going to go a bit beyond football, but I personally think a lot's been made negatively about the way people have reacted to COVID and the way people have handled COVID. Everyday people I'm talking, not politicians. Mm-hmm. But I completely disagree with that. I think the way the world has handled such a monumental change in every walk of their life and every facet of their existence, I think people deserve incredible credit, and I think it says a lot about people that they're able to adapt so quickly to massive changes. And in the grand scheme of things, me having to do Zoom chats instead of face to face, or me having to speak to people on the phone, or having to write a few extra features. So it's not a great hardship for me, and I was able to get through. And here we are now in the the new normal.
Yeah, it's kind of a microcosm of our podcast, because when we first started it was more, let's talk about the game, and then when the games aren't happening, we had to kind of veer off and say, how are we going to produce content to have a show every week? And then we started inviting guests, and now we enjoy having different perspectives from all around the world, and it's been great just hearing everybody's stories. So I definitely understand that it's a challenge, but like you said, there's more people who are showing their resilience than there's people that are really talking badly about the things that are going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you'll find from this period, whether in football or music or film or whatever, I think you'll find this will be looked back on as an unbelievable creative period. I think you'll find so many things that will come out of this that people wouldn't have thought were possible pre-COVID, and people will be learning up new skills and going back into the studio, or going back into recording artists and that kind of thing. So I think I'd like to think we can all look on the bright side of a really bad situation and find some light in there.
Just a quick one. What do you think the future is for this team for next season?
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to say, and there's no argument with it, Liverpool are among the favourites and will be among the favourites for the league and the Champions League, and that is the bottom line, isn't it, of this? So if you told me at the end of the next season Liverpool have won both, I wouldn't be surprised. It'll be hard. It'll be hard to win both. Obviously, it'll be hard to win one, either or. But I think you have to put Liverpool up there as being capable of doing that. Domestic cups, I don't want to dismiss them. Jurgen seems to a little bit, doesn't he, with some of his team selections, but they're not where Liverpool's history is or future is, so to say. It's about those two, and I think they will be going all out for both of those. I think they have the team that's capable of winning the league. Listen, we've seen the gaps can be closed. Liverpool have proven that themselves. But 18 points over a team like Manchester City suggests that it's a pretty special side that Liverpool are dealing with. I don't necessarily see Chelsea or United, Tottenham or Arsenal coming and challenging them. So I do think it will be between those two again. And I think a lot will depend on whether Liverpool can keep that edge. I think that's what's got them over the edge has been their edge. Mm-hmm. That they've been able to maintain that relentless and rampant desire for victory. And the big question will be whether they can maintain that, having experienced the joy of the victory and not having experienced the pain of the failure, and whether they can still power themselves the way they can. I suspect they probably can, but I don't think it'll be as easy as it was this season. And I say easy, I mean as comprehensive as it was this season.
Yeah, hopefully just win by 16 points next season.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe get it done by March this time, not June.
Hey, Neil, how can our listeners follow you? Do you have a Twitter or website?
Yeah, all the usual. So Twitter at Neil Jones Goal. Same on Facebook at Neil Jones Goal. At Neil Jones Media on Instagram, and obviously on Goal itself, which is go on there. You can't do it in Canada, unfortunately, as I keep being reminded. For some reason, the Goal website, I think there's some sort of rights issue in Canada, but in America where you guys are, you should be fine. So get on Goal. It should be a Liverpool team page, and you'll find me on there with hopefully some good stuff for you.
Nice one. Really appreciate you coming on. I know your time's busy, but we do appreciate it. And I hope you come back before the season starts, just to do like a preview or something.
Yeah, it'd be a pleasure. I'm going to have a few weeks off now, like Jurgen and the boys, nice. And I'll be ready to go in the middle of August.
All right. Thanks again, Neil. And we look forward to seeing your content that you're producing. And like Darren said, hopefully we can get you back before the next season starts and have a kind of a preseason overview.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.